It's
not a good
not
night for
coming
that.
back. It's not coming back. Cut it.
Go back. No,
Cut
no.
it.
I'm thinking about even taking it away when they win because I think these guys earn it back, earn the
It
theme
doesn't
song
feel
back.
right now. It just does not.
Does
It's just
Does
it
it?
does
Doesn't
not.
match the
No, it's
vibe at
yeah.
all right now at
No.
all. And
We'll elaborate, but yeah.
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 We're trying our best, Celtics.
Yeah,
We're
trying to
bringing
keep the mood
energy.
going, but it's just yeah. I mean,
What else? All right. Well, what's up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into yet another Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show. I am your host, Rob Haytayan. Joined with me are my two co-hosts, Seamus Zarlingo and Brendan Cox. Guys, tonight the Celtics, well, they got stomped at home yet again for the sixth time this short NBA season, 123-114 to the Indiana Pacers. It was the second game of a little two-game mini series here that the Celtics played in Boston, obviously winning that first one just over by 30 points the other night. Tonight they came out and it was flat all night long. Guys, now the Celtics here find themselves in a very peculiar and unfamiliar territory here over the past year and a half with this core. They are now 6-5 over the last 11 games. They have played some real bad, and emphasis on the bad, a real bad basketball this month of December here, as they're going to play one more game on New Year's Eve to close out the month. Guys, before we kind of touch base into the X's and O's, the normal stuff, we got to cut over first our initial thoughts, reactions, and takeaways on what I consider to be the worst loss of the season in my eyes.
Where do we even begin here? Because, last game, and even the game in Chicago last Saturday, we came into those post games saying the Celtics responded. They responded to their losses. Here we go. All we need to do is rattle off a couple good games here, and really, we want to see a 2, 3, 4 week stretch of good Celtics basketball. It's okay to see a loss in there every once in a while, but the streak in which the Celtics are on right now, 4 of the last 6 games losses, and 2 of the games in between those 4 losses, total blowouts of the Bulls and Pacers. And again, I already mentioned it. We went into those post games thinking, oh, here we go. The Celtics are turning the corner again. They look more like the 23-24 Celtics, yet this 24-25 Celtics team, what is going on at this point in time? Last game, the Celtics were without Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday, and they almost came up with a 40-point win against the Indiana Pacers. And tonight, we cannot blame this on missing Porzingis and Holiday, because I know I texted in our group chat earlier that, oh, this Celtics team without Porzingis and Holiday, they're kind of and I said this on postgame last postgame too. They should be potentially worse than the 2022-23 Celtics, because we're now without Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, Grant Williams, Robert Williams, and when Porzingis and Holiday don't play, those are your big additions. And the Celtics should be worse than they were last season with the roster in which they have out there, or they had out there tonight. Yet you cannot really make that excuse for this game in particular, because last game the Celtics came out and blew out the Indiana Pacers by 40 in exactly the same circumstance. Now, we did kind of add some nuance to this game coming into this game from last night, or from 2 nights ago, that post game saying this would be a harder game because the Indiana Pacers will have more rest. They're staying in Boston for multiple days, yet this does not excuse for what we saw in the fourth quarter tonight. The Celtics, they went on a 9-0 run to dig themselves out of a hole in which they've created. Once again, we've been talking about that too often as of late, the digging of holes for the Celtics and them digging themselves back out of holes and needing to come back and respond with intensity. Well, guess what? Tonight, the Celtics respond with a 9-0 run in the fourth quarter, put themselves within 2 of the Indiana Pacers. And what do we see right afterwards? A 13-0 run by the Pacers, and nearly 4 minutes where the Celtics do not score whatsoever. And what really frustrates me, and what should frustrate us in Celtics Nation about that run, is the Celtics were playing the right way during their 9-0 run, going to the rim, making defensive stops. And then once they got back into the game, once the crowd got back into the game, the Celtics took their foot off the gas pedal, started settling for shots again, started allowing Indiana back into the paint. And you really look at the paint scoring in this game, Indiana thrashed the Celtics inside of the paint. That's been a problem for the Celtics all season long, yet now it's being highlighted even more in games where the Celtics, it's becoming a bigger factor in their losses. And of course, tonight, I don't want to say it's the worst loss of the season, but it might be after what happened last game and even what we saw late in the fourth quarter. That was just, you could see within the shots, the jump shots put up, the defensive effort. There was no intensity from the squad. The squad came back, that 9-0 run, here we go. And then once Indiana went on the run, the game was over. There was 6-7 minutes left. The Celtics still could have went on a run themselves, but you could see it in the Celtics. They were done. They were checked out. And that is one of the most disappointing parts about the Celtics right now, is that they just do not look into these games at all. When really there's no guarantee this team's going back to back at this point. No guarantee.
Yeah, you couldn't have said any better than that. I just think it's just, I mean, I haven't been on here in a while, but to say this for sure, it's just been a really struggling year. I mean, that's going to sound kind of crazy, but some might agree, but it's just like, this is not the team that we expected to, see tonight, especially the last 6 games, like, 4 out of 6 losses, 4 losses in the past 6 games, just like really frustrating, especially. And the thing that annoys me the most too is like when we start the games, it's just like we just get so uncomfortable and just so lazy, and that's what Rob was saying in the group chat too. And it's just like we just go on these runs, and then all of a sudden we we're just like, yeah, we're gonna stop just doing what we're doing and just ruin the momentum. So it's just the lineup changes too can play a part in it, but I don't want to make that as an excuse. But all of a sudden, I just think it's just been really lackluster this year, especially the first part of the year. So I don't know what 2025 is going to show us, but I hope it's definitely going to be a leading into something better, and hopefully we can get it together. But tonight definitely is going to hurt.
There's no doubt. First, tonight was abysmal. I mean, it was pathetic, and it is very disappointing to see this group of guys go out just 2 nights ago and blow this team out. And then fast forward 2 days, 6:00 start, back at home, looking to build off of a phenomenal game against Indiana on Friday night, and just lay a stinker, a real stinker. And, it's frustrating. What's the most frustrating thing about it is we know how good these guys can be. And you can point fingers as to what the problem is, threes, substitutions, lackluster. You can point the finger at one thing, but the fact of the matter is that right now the Celtics, they have a lot they need to fix if they want to get to championship level. I understand it. No Porzingis, no Holiday. Those are 2 guys that are very important pieces to what you have built in this team, in the foundation. However, there should never be an execution and effort problem that the Celtics are showing. And my question to kind of the Celtics and Celtics Nation in the basketball world is, when do we cut the leash from this team? And when do we disassociate this team from the 2024 Boston Celtics in the NBA champions? Because I get it, it's the same roster. But the truth is, they haven't shown us that they're serious about going back-to-back this season. They started off really hot, 16-4. And ever since, it has been mediocre basketball. And, really, that's where I'm at with this Celtics team. And they need to show me a whole month of them putting effort in, which is crazy effort. And then I think I'll be back on the, okay, I think they can do this again train. Because right now, they're not going back to back. I'm sorry. If they're playing this type of basketball for the rest of the year, you can forget it. The league's gotten better. The young stars are gotten more experience under their belt. They're a mess right now. So as for that, and as for tonight, terrible performance. And it shows, guys. It shows in this lead tracker. The Celtics, it was a complete opposite of what we saw Friday night at the TD Garden. The biggest lead, 4 for the Celtics, 16 for Indiana. And the most frustrating part about it, guys, you can see the highest point of that lead tracker comes just after the narrow, slim lead. We cut that lead down to 4, the Indiana lead, and then they just blew the brakes off of the Celtics in that fourth quarter. Guys, I mean, obviously, there's a lot to talk about, but my big question, I think the overarching big question of what we're going to talk about in this post-game show, is it time to sound the alarms?
I think so. I mean, why not? Why not? There's no more, oh, this team will be fine later on in the season, because when we're talking about effort problems, those things you cannot build up that kind of habit over time. You just can't, because last year we saw in the playoffs, even though the Celtics only lost 3 games the entire playoff run, that Indiana series, it was a straight sweep, but every single game in that series was close. Every single game. And we came into this season against the Indiana Pacers and lost the season series against the Indiana Pacers 2-1. So Indiana could have been up 3-1 in that series last year. We could have saw the Indiana Pacers and the Dallas Mavericks in the finals. And you even think about a couple of seasons ago, the Phoenix Suns, they won 64 games in a year. We won 64 games. The Celtics did last year. And there was this sense of, oh, the Celtics, they're going to run to the title. Now they still have work to put in, but they're going to run to the title. There was a sense around that Phoenix Suns team as well, that 64 win Phoenix Suns team, yet they were bludgeoned by the Dallas Mavericks in the second round and lost a game 7 on their home floor by 1,000,000 points. If anybody remembers that, back in 2022. And this Celtics team, that's a perfect example of why right now we cannot just be saying, oh, yes, the Celtics team will figure it out later, because number one, even if you're a 64 win ball club, and even if you're winning over 60 games, you're the number one seed and dominating everybody during the regular season, there's no guarantee you're going to go out and do that in the playoffs. And there's no guarantee you're going to get past every single opponent for 4 rounds, because we know how tough it is. But number two, the Celtics, they're not even at that level right now. They're not at a 64 win level. They're not at a 60 win team level. They're at a 500 level and even below that in the last 6 games. We're 2-4 in our last 6 games. 2-4. Feels more like 21-22 at the beginning of the season right now than it does 23-24 last year, even the year before that, 22-23, a completely different Celtics team, I know. But right now with the Celtics, we have to be sounding the alarm bells, because Peyton Pritchard said it in his halftime interview 2 nights ago against the Indiana Pacers when we were in the midst of blowing them out by 40. He was saying it really is just our effort. And he was panting, he was sweating, he was wiping his face off. And Peyton Pritchard had a phenomenal game on Friday. Jaylen Brown had a phenomenal game on Friday, but the rest of the team came along with them on Friday as well. And at halftime, Peyton Pritchard was saying it's our effort that changed in this game. That's what the different result is here. That's why there's a different result. And yet tonight, where's that effort in the fourth quarter? Rob, you mentioned it on the lead tracker. The Celtics came back in the fourth quarter, cut it to 2. The Indiana Pacers then, yep, here we go. They cut it to 2. The Indiana Pacers established their biggest lead of the game right afterwards. And I mentioned it in my spiel to start post game that the Celtics looked completely checked out after that point and demotivated. And what's so frustrating about this Celtics team is, you know how good they can be, and you know the level in which they can reach when they're putting in their full effort and executing at a high level. Yet in that fourth quarter, they went, we're done. We tried. We made our run, and that was it. There was no overcoming of adversity. And how many times have we seen in the past with past Celtics teams, much different, of course, the Celtics overcome adversity because of the crowd, because of the motivation that exists within the huddle. Where is that this year? Where is it? The crowd was into the game in the fourth quarter. Inside the huddle, we have our leaders, our established leaders like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Joe Mazzulla, even Al Horford. All of these players are there. The pieces are there. Yet the Celtics, they're taking their foot off the gas. And why? Why are they becoming complacent at this point in time? Is it because it's December? Is it because they already won a ring? Well, what exactly is it? Is it because of Porzingis and Holiday being out of the lineup? It makes absolutely no sense at this point in time. And I think the alarm bells, we didn't want to ring them against the Bulls and the Magic. Now coming into the Sixers game, there was a little bit more there because it was Christmas Day, big game. Sixers come out, whoop the Celtics, but then the Celtics respond, and now this was the worst nightmare, really. This was the worst nightmare today. The worst scenario in which could have played out relative to what happened on Friday, because Friday we were coming on here, we were giving the Celtics flowers, and we were saying, here we go. Here they're turning the corner. This is what we wanted to see. This is the response we wanted to see. And yet tonight, 9-point loss, and really this should have been the first double-digit loss of the season for the Celtics, if not for the bench squad hitting a miraculous shot down the stretch to keep it a 9-point win for the Indiana Pacers, who were beat by 38 points by the Celtics on Friday with the exact same squad plus Andrew Nimhard.
I think that definitely. I don't want to. You probably could say it's definitely time to sound the alarms, but I just think all I can say is I just hope 2025 is just going to be somewhere that we can step it up a little bit more, just bounce back a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I look at tonight's loss as like maybe, like like we were saying too. It's like this team is not ready for another back-to-back. I mean, it's just gonna.
They're not.
Really, it's not. Seriously, it's just it breaks my heart too because we had high hopes of this season with this team, like going into October, with like the whole five being back, but Porzingis obviously wasn't going to be back until he came back a little bit early too, and I don't even maybe you can say that that's why maybe he's come back too early from that injury that might send him back a little bit longer. But yeah, it's just going to be 2025, especially January is going to be interesting with the matchups we have. I know we have Minnesota and Oklahoma City in the same week.
We got that West Coast road trip
West Coast
coming
road
up.
trip, yeah. And then
it's supposed to be an easy stretch going into the harder stretch. That's what's also concerning about this.
Yeah,
these are the games you're supposed to win.
That's funny you
those
say
are games
that
you
too.
have to win for sure. Yeah, I mean those are games you have to maybe even improve yourself that you can like step up and like beat the team just because we're not losing to all the good teams. We're losing to all the good teams. It's just going to matter of like how we can be everybody in our path because that's what matters the most. Especially claiming the East is what we need to finish out too.
Well, it's funny that we say that because after that Chicago loss, something we talked about was, okay, this is a good chance now for Boston, or before the Chicago loss, excuse me. Detroit, Washington, Chicago twice, Orlando without Pancaro and Wagner, a struggling Philadelphia 76ers team at home on Christmas, Indiana, who has kind of gotten their footing back 6 out of the last 7 games they've won. And then Toronto is like a beautiful setup ending to the phenomenal 2024 year, right? Go in with a nice little momentum to the new year that starts off against Minnesota on the road. Then you fly to the Houston Rockets. You play at their place, who have been playing some great ball, one of the best defensive clubs in this league. You go and you play Oklahoma City, which is on NBA League Pass. What are you thinking, NBA? And then you fly out to play the Denver. Yeah, I know. Then you can fly out to play the Denver Nuggets on the road, who you have ghosts of, and you have yet to beat since acquiring this squad, and Jokic has seemed to haunt these guys for a little bit. So you have 5 really, really important games coming up where you kind of need a 4-1, 5-0 stretch here before things really start to get messy and you lose your footing. I'm sounding the alarm, but that doesn't mean the alarm can't be turned off, right? But right now, the alarm's on. And there are so many things that I can point at right now that will back me up here. I agree with both of you. It's very disappointing and very frustrating. One, just to end a great 2024. I mean, a phenomenal year, calendar year for the Celtics squad. To end it how they are is disappointing. But it is time to sound the alarms. We have to, as Celtics fans and as basketball fans, you have to disassociate this team from last year. There was a quote that Kristaps Porzingis put out the other day after the Orlando Magic game, talking about Orlando's celebration. And Seamus, you know exactly which one I'm talking about. He said, after, mind you, losing in embarrassing fashion to the Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner-less Orlando Magic, Kristaps Porzingis comes out and says it's just a compliment to us and how good we are. That mindset, right, is an extremely slippery slope to play with as the defending champs. Because right now you have everybody on every night gunning for your throat. We talked about this last 2 nights ago, last post-game show. Right, you didn't have that last year. You weren't the defending champs. You weren't this, self-proclaimed or really nationally proclaimed, media proclaimed next dynasty in the making. This unbeatable force, right? You got that label now. When the Celtics roll into town or you roll into Boston, it's let's go. Let's beat these guys. Let's knock down the champs. They're gunning for your throats. I don't think their mentality right now is where it needs to be. They're not playing with effort, and it's just really, really messy. And they got to clean up.